Welcome to Love Uncensored. My name is Henry Ammar.
My name is Terrin Ammar.
I feel like whenever we do that, I feel like I'm back in my boy band days where it's like, hi, my name is Henry.
How's it going?
And my name is Terrin. And we're in sync, anyways, okay. Well, welcome to Love Uncensored. Today's topic is the love you crave requires this. And what's crazy about this episode is Terrin and I both had separate instances with clients that have gone through the same exact thing, and we thought, this must be a sign. And we will tell you by the end of this episode, you will understand something about yourself and about your partner that creates true intimacy.
Yeah, I would say it's almost every client of mine that I've talked to. And it was myself. And I think it's probably you. It's almost every person. I think by the end of this, you're going to relate a lot to this story in love.
And so why don't we start with another story? So I'll start with mine. So I'm working with a couple. Power couple, dynamic couple, changing the world couple. And one of them said to me, I'm scared that if I show them who I really am, he might reject me. Yeah. Even though, you could see somebody and you look from the outside, but what's happening on the inside, the belief systems, the stories, the fears that we have within ourselves, whether it's the fear of abandonment, the fear of rejection, the fear of being seen, depending on what happens. And I'm telling you, stick around to the end because we're going to tie this together in a way that is going to probably blow your mind because it's the relationship not only you have with somebody else, but how it impacts the relationship with yourself and how you walk day to day. And so the crazy part is, and I'll start with this, I love when someone says the word intimacy, you break it down to into me, I see. And how can you ever have a real relationship with somebody if you're not really willing to step into and you're afraid to be who you really are? And so the parts of you that you're scared to be are actually the parts of you that will bring the relationship to where you need it to be.
Yeah. I saw a quote somewhere that said something about you're not really fearful of love, but you're fearful of what love is going to ask you to release. Like meaning what you're going to have to release from the past, because our nervous system is always going to pick the familiar over the healthy.
Right.
So a lot of the clients that I work with, a lot of the women, and even in the container that we're in right now, they're realizing all of the things that they have brought from the past into the now. And they are also realizing that they can't attract the man that they want by bringing that with them. And so releasing it, their nervous system is kind of like, what is happening? What's going on?
Right.
And so what love is asking them to release can feel really scary in their nervous system. So
yeah, and so there's three things that are really important that we'll go through. One of them is what happens when you start to step into the full, authentic, unleashed, true version of who you are. What ends up happening within your own system and within the relationship dynamics. Right? There's something that happens within yourself because there's something that we call a comfort zone, which I don't think anybody that's ever in their comfort zone is really comfortable. So what happens when you actually start stepping into authenticity? Number two is, what does that mean? What is the mirror of the relationship in you not wanting to be rejected with the parts of yourself that you're afraid to be? How do you feel about those parts of yourself? And what is the relationship like with yourself in terms of love within yourself and love within the relationship? And third is the dynamic of what happens when you actually step into authenticity and you move from a fear-based relationship into a love-based relationship.
Yeah.
So the first one, So to me, when we think about what does it really mean when you start stepping out into who you really feel like you are? If you have a resistance, if you really look at yourself and you feel like you're performing in any way, because Terrin and I were talking about this, you can dive into it in the feminine aspect. But if you feel like I have to perform or I can't be a certain way, I can't say what I feel because there's not a safe enough container to say what I feel, to be who I am. And that doesn't give you the right to be like, I'm just going to be angry and scream and say what I want because that's a fear-based way to live. But there's always something uncomfortable. So with my client, for example, I told both of them, you have to expect something called the messy middle. So whenever you try to change anything in your nervous system, what's gonna end up happening is your body's gonna say, your mind's gonna be like, we've never done that before, what are you doing? So you're gonna naturally go into like some fear-based state, fight, flight, freeze, shut down because your body's never done it. Because I don't call it a comfort zone, I call it a safety zone. Everything you do in your life right now is because it's what you feel the safest doing based on the records of your past and generations, right? So your emotions are records of the past, as Joe Dispenza says. Everything you're doing now is exactly what your body thinks is gonna bring you the most connection and the most safety. Even if something is distorted in your relationship, because in your mind you have some belief system, whereas this person said, if I show up as who I am, I may be rejected. And then if I'm rejected, I may be alone. And if I'm alone, I'm not safe and I'm not lovable. And if I'm not lovable, it goes on and on. There's always a root cause of inauthenticity. It's a fear-based state based on the past where at some point when you were younger, when you were a kid, when you were at school or whatever happened, something happened to you that said, don't be who you are or else you won't be loved and you won't be connected and you may not be safe. One of those three. And some of you might be thinking, well, I don't really know what that is. I didn't really know what that is until I dove into this work, which is why we really want you to stick around so you could really understand what this is. So start asking yourself, where in my life do I feel comfortable and safe, but I don't feel all of me? Mm-hmm. And where in my relationship do I feel like I'm performing? Is this performative or is this authentic? Is this horse trading? Or do I really feel like my needs are really wanting to be met and her needs are really wanting to be met? So first, expect a messy middle within your own nervous system and your partnership. I have to pre-frame to Terrin whenever I'm changing because I'm like, hey, this is going to be really weird for me. So expect me to feel a little bit dysregulated when I do it. And you have to pre-frame how to
Well, you did that
connect.
with me this year, well, multiple times. Like the new evolution of
Right.
Henry Ammar. It's like, babe, just so you know, I'm stepping into more boldness in this. And so if I show up this way, so you pre-framed it for me so that my little nervous system wasn't like, what's happening?
It's true. But
Yeah.
Terrin has a statement, and I would love for you to expand on this. Help your partner win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we were in Hawaii we led 2 retreats in Hawaii a couple months ago. And I woke up at like 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning. And I was like, because you hear so much, the masculine's supposed to create safety. The masculine's supposed to create safety. And I'm like, that's true. But something felt incomplete about that. Mm-hmm. And I woke Terrin up and I said, babe, I don't think my main job is to make you safe. I think my main job is to set you free.
Yeah.
And,
Amen.
And she was half asleep. I don't know if she remembers the conversation. But to me, it was exciting because it's like, how can I build such a container for her, not just to provide safety, but allow her to be
Yes.
the full expression of authenticity of who she is. And if there's any part of her that doesn't feel safe in the world, my job as the masculine presence in our relationship is to say, where doesn't she feel safe? Not just externally, but internally in her nervous system. The best love language you could ever find, one of the best ones, is to understand your partner's nervous system. What makes them afraid? What makes them tick? What's their past? What's their history? So you can go in and actually start making them feel safe enough to be who they are, because when they are, they move from fear to love, and that's where you get real intimacy.
Yeah. I love that. Because I was sitting here thinking, I said this on another podcast, but I had talked about how you are just a master at loving me. And you need to write a book on just, this is how you love a woman in this way. And I mean, there's so many thoughts that you prompted with that. One of them being that we see a lot in the masculine feminine dynamic and in couples of what came first, the chicken or the egg. Well, the feminine needs safety, but the masculine needs freedom. And which one comes first in that? Where in reality, it takes a self-leadership within each person and a self-responsibility to one, like as a feminine woman, I also have to create safety within myself. I have to be so grounded and loving and embodied in my feminine so that and create space for him to show up in his masculine in that way. It's not me putting it off on him. Anything externally is not, going to change anything for me. Like I can't put the responsibility on, well, you need to just provide me safety and that fixes all my problems. There's still the internal job that has to happen. And for me, as you were speaking earlier, I was already self-identifying myself of like, oh, this is me. So the performer, the prover, because I grew up small town. I probably mentioned this, played college basketball, but my whole identity and belief was tied to my performance. And so I thought I had to perform to earn love, to receive love from the people that I craved it from the most, from my hometown, from anyone, even in relationship, where then now getting into this work, it can be really scary to allow all of yourself to be seen. Of like, I've hid these parts for so long. What if they don't love me? What if they don't accept me? What if they reject me? Because in my nervous system thought that would be death. Of like, oh no, everyone has to love me. Everyone has to receive me in that way. So then though, diving into the work of taking on the responsibility for myself, creating that integration. We say it's not a balance of the masculine and feminine, it's the integration.
Right.
And that's the key. So there's so many good nuggets in that.
And so the main idea is what you need to claim and what you need to become for the love that you crave the most is true, liberated authenticity of who you are in a love-based state. Because a lot of times, so this leads to number 2, and this is going to tie so much together, which I'm really excited for the next part of this podcast, to be honest. Because if I'm afraid that you're going to judge a part of me if I'm not authentic, that means I'm rejecting that part within myself.
Yes.
There's going to be a part of me that's going to feel out of integrity, out of congruence in our relationship no matter what. if I'm rejecting that part of myself, and you could never heal by rejecting that part of yourself. And the thing I love about Terrin and I, we've dove into trauma-informed expression and understanding, right? So we understand that you cannot reject something and heal it at the same time. You can't hate yourself into loving yourself.
Yeah.
And whenever you reject a part of yourself, like think about what you needed as a child. Most likely, that whether you want to call it capital T trauma, lowercase t trauma, it could be anything. But the part of yourself that felt like it had to hide in order to get love and receive love is a part of it at one time that probably got rejected when it was acting like itself or acting a certain way, right? My nickname used to be really passive. Why did I become passive? Why was I a people pleaser? Why did I get really good at reading what people needed? Was because when I was younger and I spoke up, my father got really angry and he threw something across the room once and I said, don't speak up or else you lose safety and connection. And so that experience as a child taught me, well, don't be yourself because you'll lose love and connection in this area of life. And so I felt rejected when I was myself. So what ends up happening is when you reject yourself, listen to this, you're doing the very thing to yourself that caused that emotion to show up in the first place. And the question is, who is the loving leader that your inner child would follow? And it's not someone that's going to reject themselves. So really, when you're afraid of being authentic with somebody else and being lovingly authentic with somebody else, you're actually truly mirroring yourself. You're not really scared of them rejecting you. You're actually mirroring the fact that you're rejecting yourself. Because if you fully encompassed this love within yourself, you would be who you are in the full expression. That would create healing in yourself and cause the other person to rise. And a lot of single people put on this performance. And guess what? If you call somebody in when you're performing, you're going to have to keep that mask on for the rest of your life in order to keep them or to maintain it, unless you both can evolve together. So to me, to me is thing that you crave the most is love. And most people are looking for it outside of themselves before they look at it within themselves.
Yeah. And to add on to that, so a lot of the women that I've been working with recently, because you're talking about the state that you attract someone. So if we're speaking to our, like the single ladies, the single men, a conversation I just had with numerous of these women that I've been working with is that if you attract a man in a shrinking state, because so many women are just so fearful of being seen as too much. Like, oh, I'm too emotional, I'm too playful, I'm too loud. And when in reality, that is the feminine. The feminine expression is like, she is multifaceted. But anyway, we had this conversation of, if you attract a man in a shrinking state, when you actually allow yourself to be in your fullness, guess what happens? He can't hold you in that fullness of your feminine. And so even though this work can feel kind of scary, the goal is to step into that fullness, into that authenticity, to then attract a man at that state. Because if anything, he's then able to hold you and elevate you. And that's like exactly with you and me, it was the first time that I was in a relationship that you weren't intimidated, quote unquote, intimidated by my masculine, by my drive, by my integration, by the feminine woman that I was. If anything, you just elevated me in that, which was the best. And then also, you mentioned help your partner win, which is, I wanted to touch on that because sometimes what I see a lot of the time is women will do love tests, and where it's that part of them that's saying, well, which the feminine always and unconsciously will test the masculine, but there's a part of them that says, well, I want to see if he still loves me, or I want to see if he still acknowledges me, or if he's aware of this. So they'll consciously, for example, I'm not going to take out the trash to see if he will take out the trash. And I can say this because I've done it in the past and now I'm aware of it. But if I ask myself, would that be helping my partner win? Would that be helping you win? No, I'm setting you up to fail right off the gate, because if you don't meet that quote unquote expectation, then you're already going to fail. But if I'm able to show up in my fullness and my expression, and I lovingly, express that to you, and I help you win, we both win. And
I'm so glad you said that, because the coolest part about that is Terrin actually had an activation around someone taking out the trash, because her last relationship, if she didn't take it out, it would just pile up and get disgusting, right? Yeah. And so the crazy part about it is her expressing that to me, that she had this activation around it. I get to help her win and feel more liberated in that state. So what do? I'm very conscious of that. So I want to give her what they call in the trauma healing space a disconfirming experience, where I would go in and I would actually look for times when I could actually throw the trash out and make sure she doesn't have to worry about it, because it's an activation for her, to the point where her nervous system said, oh my gosh, that is a big deal to me. So authenticity doesn't mean perfection.
No.
Authenticity means this is who I am in my greatness and in what I struggle with. And then together we could help each other navigate in the struggle. Because sometimes if you weren't able to be carried in all of you in the past, you think, well, how can this person carry me? Especially in the feminine, right? Like a lot of women end up storing so much and carrying so much that they don't allow the masculine to come in and do that. And a lot of masculine don't know how to handle emotions. We're actually doing an episode in the future that says
coming next.
Men that can't handle the feminine emotions aren't going to be able to handle feminine devotion, right? It's so true.
Or do they deserve it? Yeah.
It's this whole area of like, no, come and be who you are, and I'm going to stay in presence, I'm going to stay in love, and I'm going to stay in my power under control and let you know I still got you, no matter where you are, especially when you're not feeling comfortable, right? That's the healthy relationship. There's going to be moments where I have to take off my armor, and I help Terrin win by saying, hey, by the way, I have to take off my armor. It's authenticity. It's truth, right? It's saying, I'm not going to try to be perfect. I'm not going to reject myself if I'm not perfect. I say I've had a really rough day. I'm taking off my armor. I'm going to come back, but I'm really struggling, where we get to help each other win. And so when we say the love you crave the most requires authenticity and being who you are and showing the parts of yourself that you're most afraid of, you have to, whether if you're single, you want to call in somebody that can hold the space. If you're in a relationship, you want to help each other win in that area. And also you want to help yourself win in that area, knowing that what you're scared of being rejected with somebody else, you're rejecting within yourself. So it's time to stop that and do the inner work to where you could develop that love for those parts of yourself.
It's basically holding a mirror or whatever. Right. What's your phrase? Whatever you're pointing outward or something is you have three fingers.
Oh yeah. Whenever you point
back
at somebody else, you have three fingers pointing back at you.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. So it's wild. And so you think about this. And so the invitation is, and this goes to step number 3, is going from fear-based living to love-based living. What does life look like when you're walking around in a cage, not allowing yourself to be yourself? Like, you know there's more. You know there's something else. You know you want to be free. Masculine, you want to be free. And if you're people-pleasing or if you feel like you have to be aggressive, that is not who we are. That's who our primal state is in our body, but there is something that is bigger than all of us that is love. And what we're craving the most is intimacy. If the masculine, if you're in a primal state, in a fear-based state, then in your passive, you will not be able to hold the space. There's not going to be a connection. She's not going to feel safe enough to let her walls down, or she'll just try to take control. But if you're aggressive and you're in your fear-based state, you're in fight mode instead, or you shut down or whatever you are, there's never going to be safety enough and freedom enough to where you can have real intimacy and oneness. So we have to understand, where in my life am I operating in fear? And what would it really look like if I was free and operating in love and really mindful about how I showed up every day and was intentional and did this work and was mindful about where she was in fear? And I'll tell you this is not, I'm going to go and be myself and authenticity. And I'm going to say what I want to say because this is what I'm doing. It's like, there's a big difference. And this is a big disclaimer, because on the way here, Terrin was like, we have to put a disclaimer, because there's a lot of people that are like, I'm just going to be who I am and say what I want to say and do what I want to do. But love is a much higher frequency. It's an understanding of, yes, I'm going to honor, I'm going to love myself. I'm going to love the other person. And I'm not going to look at who's right. I'm going to look at what's right. And we're going to look at this union and what does it take to create real intimacy in our relationship, and how can we create safety, love, passion, and most importantly, polarity and understanding as you follow along on this masculine feminine dynamic. What creates true masculinity? What creates true femininity? So we have other episodes about it. We have a ton of content about it. When you understand what a healthy, powerful king masculine energy is and queen energy, there's such a powerful union and intimacy. And the same thing for the feminine, whether she's in fight or flight, if you want to expand on that.
I think my favorite quote that you just said was, which we say it all the time, is it's not about who's right, it's about what's right. I think that if all couples could just remember that, as well as help your partner win, gosh, like relationships would be so different.
Yeah.
So different, as opposed to competition and performance,
right.
and remembering that the part of us that actually is so scared to be seen is really the same part of us that really craves connection. I mean, I could quote you all day long, but your other phrase of every form of communication is either a cry for help or an act of love. It's the same thing. It's still that same part that just, wants to be seen as well as connected. It's just going about it in an unhealthy way.
Yeah, and isn't that, if every form of communication is a cry for help or an act of love, if your partner is crying out for help, even if it shows up like walling up or anger or whatever that is, as their partner, don't you want to bring them back home? Don't you want to love them back home? They're really just crying out for help. But sometimes their cry for help feels like it's an attack on you, but somebody's got to break the cycle, right? And so the main premise of all this, we have to move from fear-based hiding into love-based, fully loving, liberated expression of who we are, and allowing ourselves to be seen and to be held in the things that we're afraid of. So the way that you could win on this is self-awareness. Be lovingly self-aware of yourself. And I say lovingly because it's not, oh my gosh, I run these things and I'm beating myself up, because you can't beat yourself up into healing, right? That doesn't work. And then it's also being aware of your partners. What are their struggles? What are their activations? Where do they feel scared? How can you help them win? And then the second one is understanding that what happened to you, the reason why you're performing is because something happened in your past that made you feel like you had to be that person and put on a mask to do the little dance, but in that place, you're never gonna fully be the person you're meant to be. And relationships, you might have been hurt in relationship, but from now on, you could come together and set a goal to say, who is my spouse, partner, friend, lover, whatever you wanna call it? What are they really afraid of? And how can I help them be safe enough to be free and see them for who they are? And how can they help me in that?
Yeah. And being radically, lovingly honest and all of that, especially with ourselves, because a lot of the time we'll either emotionally override or spiritually override or just justify behaviors.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm not activated. And it points the finger somewhere else, where in reality, it's just when you can own what is yours and your partner owns what is theirs, and you're able to lovingly come together to communicate in that way, it's a huge difference. And since this podcast is about the person that you have to become, that can be really hard. Like, especially couples, we've worked with couples where the women in the relationship were having a very hard time apologizing or just being grateful, or, because to apologize would mean that they were weak. And if they were weak, then they wouldn't be respected. And if they weren't respected, down, down, down. Where in reality, just because you own what is yours and saying, I'm so sorry that I made you feel this way.
Yeah.
There's real power in that. Like, to actually have someone who loves you apologize for something is huge.
Yeah. Absolutely. So as we wrap this episode up, this is really important. This is a very practical, direct, straight up conversation. We have to look at where we're afraid and turn it into devotion, and turn it and alchemize it, and know that fear is just a messenger. And if my job, and I'm going to speak to the masculine right now, if your partner or if you're calling in people, step in and be a safe space for them. Be a loving space for them. Look for where they're most afraid. Look for where they've been hurt in their life. If they're acting a certain way, be present enough to know that you could handle their emotions, that you don't get caught up in the energy. Because guess what? If you get caught up in the energy of the feminine, you've lost your masculinity, because it's grounded, it's present, it's certain. I'm not saying your feelings don't matter, because they do. I want you to honor your feelings. And let's set the intention to let our partners, and if you're single, how do you call that in? And we have actually a full episode on that. But how do you call it in? And how do you step into a place where my role as her partner, as her lover, as her husband, is to say, where in her life is she not free? And how can I help set her free? Because if you're craving love, you need authenticity, because authenticity creates intimacy. And again, it's into me I see. Do I allow them to see into me? And a lot of men are afraid of their own emotions, so they don't even like emotion. I know so many people, so many men, so many masculine men that feel like emotion is not a part of it. But you don't deal with your own emotions, so when she gets emotional, you get activated. So how could you be a safe place?
Yeah.
So we gotta do the inner work to get your nervous system on board and totally become unapologetically fully expressed in who you are. But it's not unapologetic in a way where, this is who I am. A true masculine. You cannot say you're masculine. Well, I'm masculine. I'm gonna do this, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm gonna tell you how it is. That's not masculine. Because there's no safety, there's no masculinity. So you can call yourself masculine, but if you're craving a lack of connection, lack of making them feel chosen in all of them, in every single part of them, you become that loving leader they've always needed. Masculinity is leadership. It's presence, it's love, it's co-creation with them. It's understanding them so much that you see their fears and you go into their fears. You walk into the hell with them and you walk them out because they've never experienced that kind of love. And that's the kind of energy we need in this world, where men can come in and provide the safety and protection and liberation for people to say, this is who I am and you're safe here with me. I got you. I got you in your ups and I got you at your worst. And that's what we need in this world. So masculine men, we have to step up into groundedness. And if you're activated, do the freaking work. Do the work so you stop becoming a puppet to the outside world, because something the masculine craves is freedom. And if you're reactive, I'm gonna tell you right now, you're not free. Because the word reactive is react, to act out the past again, which means you're a puppet to your past, you're a slave to your past, and you're not free. And I know the masculine, the number one thing we want is freedom. It's a big thing. And so if you're reactive, you're not free. So you got to set yourself free so you can set her free, and vice versa.
I'm sitting here like all emotional, about to cry, because I'm like, yes,
And so what about the feminine?
you've
Like,
done
what
that
is
for
the
me.
feminine? Like, let's just speak to the women. Let's speak to the feminine. Like, the masculine, yes, stepping up and being that present and doing the work for themselves and knowing their feelings are valid. But what about the women? What about the feminine? What do they need to experience? Like, how can they contribute in the terms of polarity and masculine and feminine dynamics?
The biggest thing I could say is that knowing, one, your king needs a space to come home and take his armor off. And that doesn't mean you need to fix anything or do anything for him. So many women take on the fact of there's something wrong, I need to go and fix it, I need to do. Where the feminine, she is nurturing and compassionate. There's a lot of times where Henry, I mean, he's, as you can tell, you can feel the energy of this warrior who goes out into the world and is fighting the battle, and he'll come home and I can see him. I can see just the energy. And what do? I just come and I'll sit next to you. Or I'll take you to get your favorite food.
She does.
But the feminine, honestly, is it's presence. It's love isn't earned through performance. It's craved and desired through presence. Being present with your partner, being present to see him, to love him, to encourage him and give admiration. The masculine desires to be seen in that way. He also needs safety as well. Like, there's safety in both parts. The Gottmans even teach that. The number one indicator of a healthy relationship is emotional safety. So you know that you can come to me and share anything with me in the way that you do. And I know it's the greatest gift to me that I know that I can come to you to share whatever it might be, and you receive it and we can have a conversation about it, and it's not scary in any way. We're stronger on the other side, but just remembering that the feminine is presence in the being, not fixing and doing anything. And
And it's crazy because for me, I know that whenever Terrin sees me in that, whenever I see her shut down because I am having a rough day, I try to help her win. I'm like, hey babe, I'm struggling right now. I'm in a dysregulated state or something's going on. Pre-framing is way better than reframing. And so when I say that to her, I help her win. But if there's ever a time when I'm dysregulated and I want her to win, but I see her shutting down or blaming me when I'm already down, it creates such a distance in our relationship. And of course, it's my responsibility to like work through stuff, but in partnership and in friendship and in anything that you have in your life, co-regulation is so important. Is there safety between the two of us? Do I know she's really for me? Because what happens when we're in a fear-based state, it becomes survival, and I'm for myself and she's for herself. Right?
Yeah.
And it's all for one and none for y'all.
One, I think, for y'all. Well, one of the things we promised ourselves when we learned how to fight, is we said that one of our rules was, even if we were in a rupture of any kind, is that we wouldn't withdraw love. Love was still there, because that obviously is the fear that love would be withdrawn in some way. And so even though there might be like some discomfort in it, which anytime we've ever had, which I still am like, we've never had a big fight from what I would consider a fight, but there's been the uncomfy situations, and we always come out stronger on the other side. Like always, we just, every single time. And I think it's the leaning into that.
Yeah.
And you do such a good job of allowing me, or like almost giving me permission in a safe way to lean into that more deeply in a way that feels safer to me. And I try to do that for you. I'm still working on those muscles.
We're both working on stuff. And I'll just say this in closing, that women and for the feminine, it's like when you're authentic with your struggle, the masculine wants to help and take care of you. But when you're masculine, when you're in a fear-based state, whether you withdraw or whether you get aggressive, it's hard. But your authenticity, let's go back to the main thing. You crave love the most, and most people aren't willing to be all of them because you feel like, man, you have to put on this mask and I got it all together, or I got it all together. When the reality is we're both figuring it out together, and we get to be closer tomorrow. So, and I'll tell you, it's crazy. Even with our clients and just tying it up, like I remember when she was finally vulnerable with him and said, I'm really scared to be who I am because I think you might reject me. And he's like, dude, I see you. I see this part of you and I want this part of you. It's actually when he said, when you're in fear, when you're acting this way is when it turns me off and makes me want to move away from you. But when you actually show me who you are, even if you're scared to be it and you're like, yeah, I'm really scared to do this, but I want to step into it. He was like, dude, it makes me want to go in and like really help you in that.
Yeah.
Rather than her forcing out of fear. There's an energy of fear that Dr. Stephen Porges calls it neuroception, where your unconscious mind is always looking for cues of safety or danger. So she comes at me in this like dangerous state. My nervous system's be like, oh, she's attacking. Whereas like going back to, man, I want her to win and she wants me to win. And so how can we do that?
Can I add to that real quick?
Yeah.
So remember that, which this is a whole nother podcast topic that I'm sure we'll dive into, but remember that the masculine is drawn to spaces that he can make a difference. And the more open and vulnerable the feminine is, and sharing even the struggles. The masculine naturally has a natural desire to show up and to serve and to protect. He is drawn to that space. But if you put on the mask and perform in a way of, no, I have it all together, there's no space for him to come in to serve in that way. So just remember, the masculine, a truly healthy, embodied masculine man will absolutely want to come and serve.
And so the love you crave the most may be in the places that you're scared to show up. And so where do you feel disconnected from yourself? Where do you feel like you're being inauthentic? Where do you feel afraid? And that's okay. Lots of compassion there, but fear is just a messenger. So it's showing you where to look. Limits are messengers. Emotions are messengers. They're not supposed to be dictators. So where in your life do you feel like you can't express? And how can you do the work? And what would it look like if you were in your full loving expression? And I think there's so much magic in that. So just a question to think through. And there's so much depth around. We can go into the releasing of the trauma and releasing of all the stuff that's there. But first, loving self-awareness.
Yep.
You know, it's being authentic and asking yourself the question, what would happen if I felt so safe in my body and so free to be everything that I am? And what if both of us were? How beautiful could that relationship be if you're single? What kind of love could you call in? And so we thank you so much for being on here. If you have any questions or any follow-up questions, please shoot us a note. Please remember to share, comment, like, subscribe. If there's anybody you know that could use this, just share it out.
All the buttons.
All the buttons. Beep, 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 beep. It's funny. It's so funny saying that because there's this bunch of AI memes that we were watching. And even these, like, I don't know if you guys have seen the one of Moses where he's walking. He's like, like, comment, subscribe. It's like this AI. Total rant.
All good.
Anyways, back to our scheduled programming. Thank you for watching or thank you for listening. And until next time, we'll see you.
Bye.